I've said it before, but it's worth it to say it again here. The Loomis Method is a framework for drawing facial proportions that you could use as a baseline to draw heads. After mastering the default Loomis proportions, it's fully intended that you graduate to experimenting with different facial proportions. However, before we start breaking rules and improvising, let's learn the basic Loomis method for drawing the head. Previously, we went over the drawing the Loomis method from the front view. Today, I'll go over how to utilize the method for the side view. The side view tends to give people more trouble than the front view, but as long as you pay attention to the positioning of facial features, as well as the bone structure, you should be able to easily understand the side view. The side view Loomis method template starts off the same way as the front view. We draw a sphere, divide it in half, and then divide the two halves into thirds. Let's use the distance from the middle line and the bottom tick mark to estimate the placement of the chin. For now, we'll just use a tick mark to take note of this placement. Remember that the distance between the hairline and the brow ridge and the nose and the chin are all equivalent. We can use this spacing to place the chin. Next, we can draw a line from the right side of the sphere downwards until it's in line with the chin. We can go to the right side of the sphere and draw a little bulge for the brow ridge. Let's draw a line from the bottom of the brow ridge diagonally downward until we reach a point just above the bottom tick mark. We can put in a horizontal line that meets up with the vertical line we just placed. Now, let's draw a line downwards until it's in line with the chin. Next, we can put it in the air at the center of the sphere. The height of the air goes from the middle line down to the bottom tick mark. Let's draw a line from the tip of the nose diagonally downwards until it's in line with the bottom tick mark. This diagonal line will represent the base of the nose. Now let's divide the distance between the tick mark representing the base of the nose and the chin into 3. The mouth line will be placed in line with the top tick mark. This mouth line is often drawn too big. The line should never go past the eye. I'll explain why when we go over how to draw the skull from the side view. Speaking of the eye, let's figure out where it should be placed. Draw a dotted line from the tip of the nose and mirror it over the line we drew downwards at the right side of the sphere. Let's come in halfway between the line we just drew and the line we drew on the right side of the sphere and place the eye. Remember, the center of the eye should fall between the middle line and the top tick mark we made at the bottom half of the sphere. Now let's place our eyebrow on the middle line we made for the brow ridge and start drawing the jaw. The jaw goes downward from the air until a point that is in line with the mouth. From this point, we can connect to the chin. The entire side view of the head can fit into a square. The tip of the nose, the chin, the top of the skull, and the back of the skull fit perfectly into this box. Notice that we have to add an arc to the back of the head to make the head proportional. The top of the head is usually more of a boxy shape than a round shape. The skull curves around until a point that is in line with the nose. The neck moves on a hinge that is in line with the mouth. And that about covers it. Like I said with the front view, it's supremely helpful to be aware of the planes of the head. You might not ever explicitly draw this diagram we're about to draw, but being knowledgeable about the planes of the head will help you represent the head as a 3D object. We'll start with our sphere, our tick marks, bulge, and a line downward at the right side of the sphere. The bottom of the bulge should be in line with the eye line. Let's draw the plane for the nose. We could draw a diagonal line from the bottom of the brow ridge outward until a point that represents the tip of the nose, right above the base of the nose. Let's turn this line into a rectangle. The bottom corner of this rectangle should be in line with the base of the nose. Let's draw a vertical guideline at the tip of the nose and mirror it. The eye plane touches the mirrored line at a height that is in line with the top tick mark on the bottom half of the sphere. We'll go diagonally up to the brow ridge line. Now let's draw our mouth and sphere for the mouth using the standard 3 divisions that segment the distance from the nose to the chin. Remember, the mouth should not go past the eyes. Let's draw our chin using 3 zigzagging lines. We can use the last segment to make a rhombus that represents the chin. Let's put in our ear and jaw the same way we drew it before. Remember to draw the vertical line downwards from the ear. Next, let's put the sphere for the cheek in. Now draw a line from the top of the chin that touches the sphere for the mouth, the sphere for the cheek, and stops at a point that is in line with the top tick mark on the bottom half of the sphere. Notice that the line stops at a midpoint between the eye plane and the ear. Let's draw a line a little above this chin just to emphasize the plane change. Next, we can draw an arc that represents the plane change at the side of the head. The arc goes from the top of the eye plane up to the top tip mark on the top half of the sphere. Now we can draw our square that touches the head at 4 points we mentioned before. Finally, we can draw the plane for the back of the jaw by drawing a line from the jaw up to the cheeks. Let's add some shading, and we're done. As I said in the previous video, knowing the anatomy of the skull can give you more insight into the shapes of the different parts of the face, as well as give you a better understanding of the parts of the head that either don't move, which gives you a more reliable landmark to base things off of, or if they do move, they move in a mostly mechanical, predictable way. Knowing basic skull structure will also give you insight into what not to do when drawing facial expressions. We'll start with our square, circle, and tick marks. I want you to get comfortable with the fact that you can draw the different guidelines in different orders, and once you master the positioning, you won't need to explicitly draw them out. Let's draw our brow ridge down to the eye line, and then draw a diagonal line to a point that is halfway between the eye line and the top tick mark. This point is the top of the nose bone. Let's draw an arc that goes downward slightly above our bottom tick mark that represents the base of the nose and wraps around to complete the shape of the nose bone. Let's draw a little ghost nose to help us place the eye bone. I know that's not the name of it, but you know what I mean. Let's draw a guideline downward from the tip of the nose and mirror it across the line we drew at the right side of the sphere. The outside of the eye bone can be placed just inside the line we just made. The inside of the eye bone will take the form of sort of a curved raindrop. The top of the raindrop will touch the midline we made for the brow ridge, and the bottom of the raindrop will touch the top tick mark we made on the bottom half of the sphere. Let's also draw the side plane of the skull so it meets up with the top tick mark on the top of the head. We can draw a horizontal line from the outside of the eye bone to the middle of the square to create the top part of the zygomatic bone. The bottom part of the zygomatic bone goes right towards the line that we made when we mirrored the vertical line at the nose bone. Let's create a diagonal line downward for the cheekbone. Notice that the bottom of the cheekbone lines up with the base of the nose. Now let's draw the mouth. Remember that the bottom of the top row of teeth are slightly below the top tip mark we make when we divide the distance from the chin to the base of the nose into 3. Let's draw the jaw now. Drop a line downward so it's in line with the mouth, then draw our basic jaw shape until we meet up with the chin. Let's draw this triangle at the top of the jaw and a line downward from the line we created earlier where we mirrored the vertical line at the tip of the nose. We'll use the teeth line we created earlier and the line we just made to make the teeth. This is actually important. Notice that if you draw a smile with the outsides going past the eye, then you'll essentially be showing the wisdom teeth and some of the jawbone. Make sure that when you draw mouths from the side view that they don't go past the eyes unless you're trying to make your character extremely exaggerated or some type of monstrosity. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but if you're going to do that, do it on purpose. Anyway, I'll finish the drawing in the teeth. Let's also draw our square that touches the 4 points on the head and draw an arc at the back of the head. Finally, I'll put in some shading. Finally, let's do a little demo of drawing the face from the side view without reference. I'm doing this mainly to show you the utility of the Loomis method. In the beginning stages, you want to focus on proportions and correctly placing the basic shapes, but you'll very quickly graduate to being able to focus on anatomy and composition. That being said, when you're practicing, it's a good idea to have a reference photograph or look at an artist you greatly admire. When it comes to the side view, Norman Rockwell is a great reference to practice with. His characters are so expressive and full of life, making him an excellent source for a reference. In terms of this drawing, nothing special is really going on right here. I'm using the same basic Loomis method to draw the face, but I'm using my knowledge of rendering and anatomy to create forms. In the next video, we'll go over the 3/4 view. If you enjoyed this video or you would be curious about what I have to offer in the future, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, be safe, take care, and later days.